Hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the stream. Happy Tuesday. Happy Black History Month. And welcome to the stream. Welcome to Brown Girl Gamer Code, a leading digital community for women and femmes of color in gaming and tech. It was created out of the need to have a space not only connect with others like ourselves, but also to build a platform where our stories and contributions in this industry are centered and amplified. Our mission at BGGC is to advocate for representation, equity, opportunity for marginalized identities in gaming and tech industry. In the face of rampant toxicity and exclusion and being undervalued, we resist. So, welcome in. It's an absolute honor to welcome you to a very special edition Code Chat featuring the developers from Apex Legends. Today, we'll be talking to them about Season 16 and getting to know them more as gamers and about their roles at Respawn. But first, I have a couple of pointers for our viewers, a couple helpful items. So, we have some special commands in our chat for your convenience. So to learn more about season 16, type !S16. For more information about our guests, type !guests. And for more information about Apex in general, you can type !Apex. If you need any help at all, please feel free to reach out to our lovely, amazing mod squad in the chat. And with that, let's meet today's guests. So we have a senior engineering manager, a design director, sound designer, and animator. So let's welcome them to the stream. All right, there we are. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. It's so good to have you all here today. We are so excited to chat with y'all and to just really get into the nitty gritty of everything. So, as I said, we have a senior sound designer here, Jordan Hammond. We have Harmon. I'm sorry, forgive me. I'm excited. We have Evan Nikolic, who is the design director. We have Ade, who is a senior engineering manager, and we have Alejandro, who is a animator at Apex Legends. So welcome in, everyone. With that, how are y'all doing today?
Doing well, doing well.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course, of course. Thank y'all for chatting with our community today. We are so excited to chat more about your role and learn more about what you do with Apex and talk more about season 16. So we're super excited. With that, I'm going to go ahead and let you all introduce yourselves. So we'll start first with Jordan.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, Jordan Harmon, senior sound designer. Been with the company for about 5 years, 6 years now. Yeah, working and looking over a wide range of sound in our game. So yeah.
Awesome. All right, we're going to pop over to Evan.
Hi, everyone. I'm Evan. I'm the design director on Apex Legends, and I've been here for a year and a half now. And my role encompasses overseeing the creative process and the entirety of the design direction of Apex. And before that, I was at Bungie for 9.5 years, and I was a creative director on Destiny. So yeah, I'm super excited to be here and talk to you all.
That's amazing. 9 years. Wow.
Long time. Yeah.
So our Destiny fans in the chat. We have an OG up here. Yeah. All right, we're gonna pass it over to Ade.
Happy Black History Month, everybody. Thanks for having us. I go by Ade, and as a senior engineering manager at Respawn, I like to describe my role as providing my team with the right environment, culture, and everything they might need to do their proudest work and achieve their career aspirations at Respawn.
All right, and then last but certainly not least, Ali.
How's it going? My name is Alejandro Potter, or you can call me Ali for short. I've been at Respawn now for almost 3 years in August, and I've been in the industry for about 6 years, and I've worked on titles from Destiny 2 Forsaken to Call of Duty 2019, Jurassic World Evolution, and Elite Dangerous Odyssey. And now I'm on Apex Legends working as an animator. And I describe my job as being a puppeteer. So make things move.
Yes, I love that. I love the comparison to puppeteering. You've also been, you have like a wide variety of experience in terms of the games you've worked on as well, from Destiny all the way to Apex. So that's a pretty wide arrangement of like experience and things like that. So my first question then too is, so how did you all get here to Apex? I'm gonna start with Ali. So like how did you get all, you've been all around the industry and doing all these things.
Oh
What was the
boy.
journey, what was the journey getting here to Apex? And like how did you decide, you know what, this is where I want to be?
All right. So, long story short, after the infamous Activision layoffs of 2019, I found myself needing to get a new gig. So I went to a job fair that was, I think, in like Burbank or Irvine, one of those places. And I met a recruiter at Respawn there. And so we talked and I showed her my reel. And I was like, oh man, I'd love to work for you guys. I'm a super big fan of Titanfall, kind of geeking out a little bit. And then, we stayed in touch from that point on. And then I went to go work at Frontier Developments, where I was on Jurassic World and Elite Dangerous. And then, the COVID pandemic happened,
Mhm.
and I was in the UK at this point, and I was like, I think it might be time to go back to the States. So I started looking for a job in the States that would let me work in Michigan, which is where I'm from. And so, I hit up the recruiter that I met from Respawn, shout out to Miriam, and sent her my reel, and she connected me with the team, and the rest is history.
Wow. So first of all, you're from Michigan. I'm also from Michigan.
Hey,
Hey,
yeah, you know
yes,
how it is.
yes. I always get so excited when I meet other Michiganders.
Absolutely.
All right, we're gonna pop back over to well, I want to save Ade because I have another question for Ade and her journey that's coming later that I really want to hone in on. But let me pass it over to Evan. How did you get to where you are?
Yeah, sure. So I'm very lucky. I am actually a second generation game developer. My mother was a game developer back in the early 80s. And so if you ever played any games, the Atari 2600, she worked on Spider-Man, she worked on
What?
Frogger for the ColecoVision. So from the when I was 3, 4 years old, I was typing away at keyboards and playing with ROM chips and stuff like that. Um, and yeah, I was always encouraged. I was always very lucky to have like a really good parents that really encouraged me to pursue. And I can't remember a time where I wasn't really into games. I wanted to play pro basketball. I was very tall. That by the time I got to Villanova, I realized that I was not going to be a D1 basketball star. So I focused on engineering, knowing that I wanted to make video games. So I focused on computer electrical engineering. And then I got my first job at EA, actually testing Madden 2005. And I've been there ever since. I went from QA to, I went to another company after I graduated. I did engineering work. And then from engineering work, I went to design work. And then I got my start at Bungie. And then that's where I got to a leadership level. I made my way from mid-level designer to creative director. And then 18 months ago, Apex, they wanted to hire me. I'm a big fan of the game, really respect the craft and all the work they've done here. And now I'm here and loving it. So yeah, it's been a good journey so far.
That is awesome. First of all, I want to go back to your mom being a game dev in the 80s. Like, that's huge. That
Yeah.
is huge. The industry has come so far from the 80s to now in terms of like the games and everything. And even like representation for your mom to be a game dev in the 80s, like that's pretty
Yeah.
significant.
Yeah, it's quite the story. She was an engineer working on nuclear power plant software, and then she went to a
Wow.
random career fair at a hotel, and they were like, assembly level code. Do you want to make games? She was like, sure, I can. And then they gave her a good offer, and yeah, ever since then, just been on the go. So yeah, she spent a few years at Parker Brothers. They had when the crash happened, 83, 84, everything downsized, and then yeah, she went and did like production software for a while, and then she became a full-time mom and raised all. I'm one of four, so she had 4 kids. But yeah, all we're all in the video games, and my brother is also a game developer as well. So yeah.
I love that. So y'all have a whole game dev like legacy
family
going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what a career change, going from working on like nuclear things to video games. That is quite the jump. So shout out to your mom for doing that. All right, Jordan, how about you? Let's walk us through your journey.
Yeah, sure. Also, that is insane to have generational like game dev. Like that makes that I know it existed, but it's crazy to hear it. Yeah, so I actually I feel like have maybe not the craziest, but like a weird kind of way of getting inside the industry. I was working at a music studio, kind of doing like running and second assisting, plugging in mics for people. And I was at the time living in my car. And a buddy of mine who used to have an open couch for me at times was actually a sound designer on Titanfall 2. And when I would go over to his place and basically sleep on his couch, I'd talk about like all the artists I got to work with at the studio and like the crazy stories and stuff like that. And he'd tell me about what he was doing. And at that time in my life, I didn't know sound design was like a thing. So hearing that he was going in and making all of these sounds, recording footsteps and doing all these things, I just found it really interesting. And I was like, I want to do what you do. So he had helped me out, got me a job as a tester, a contract tester over here at Respawn, where I had no idea what I was doing. And I basically just tried to pick out when sounds didn't make sense or when they felt off, and read the error codes that would pop in and kind of teach myself how the sound worked in the game. And through that kind of got the attention of the actual audio team in the game. And once I got the attention of them and started realizing they started recognizing who I was when I was putting bugs in, I was like, maybe I should actually teach myself how to sound design. So I started recording, using Fraps, or I think it was Fraps or maybe OBS, but recording gameplay, taking it home and basically trying to redesign the sound that I heard in Titanfall 2. After a couple months, I think about 8 months or that or so, I was able to get promoted or at least brought on to the main team over at on Titanfall 2. And once I got there, 2 sound designers that were there, senior sound designers at the time, Brad Snyder and Rick Hernandez, basically allowed me to go in their rooms and stand behind them and watch everything they were doing, as long as I had all my audio tasks and things like that covered. And I just tried to learn as much as I could while watching them. They would send me home with random tasks. I remember Rick Hernandez gave me this Escape from Tarkov video, which way before like I don't even know. I thought it was some generic game at the time. I was like, what is this? Some generic military? Cool, I'll do it. Bringing it back to him and him being like, this is awful. And I was like, great, I'll just keep trying. And did that for about maybe 4 months before the director, my director as of now, Eric Kraber, started giving me feedback as well on the videos that I was providing. That went back and forth for about 8 months or 4 months. Yeah, I would basically test, watch them, head home, try to design to get more feedback from these guys. And they eventually, after a while, I guess Eric trusted that I was either doing what I needed to do for his feedback, or at least willing to do a million iterations until I got it right. And he offered me a position on as a junior sound designer on Apex. And since then, I've been kind of working my way from junior to normal sound designer and now senior.
Wow. What a story. What a story. And just really just shows, and I really want our audience to really listen in, because a lot of times, like, we see you all like in your roles now, and we don't think like, oh, everybody has to start somewhere. Like, you don't know where that start is gonna like lead you. And so I just think it's so important to really think about that, and for y'all to in chat to listen, because I hear a lot of folks saying like, I don't know where to start. I don't have experience. I don't have this. I don't have that. That does not mean that there's not a place for you in this industry. So I definitely want to call that out. All right, so then I want to chat with Ade really quickly, because one of the things I really want to call out. So Ade is a senior engineering manager, but not only that, you and your role as a Black woman in this industry, I have to call that out because our community centers folks like us, centers women and femmes of color, and a lot of folks, when you think about like representation in engineering, and especially for folks that look like us, like it's very minimal, and it's really hard to get in and things like that. So I want to hear more about your journey into where you are, and just give us the tea. Give us the tea on our day.
Yeah, it's amazing to hear everyone's story, and yeah, thanks for that acknowledgement. I feel like things have come along very well. We still have ways to go for sure. Everybody knows this. I actually didn't start my career in the gaming industry. I didn't grow up thinking I wanted to work in the gaming industry. I just knew I wanted to be an engineer. Period. I grew up in the VCR generation. Some folks on the call may not know what that is, a video cassette recorder, right? And if we had problems with it at home, I'll be the one to go in and tinker with it. If the car had issues, I'll just go into the hood and try and figure things out. So I went to college, did that, and had the opportunity to start working in the States. After like an amazing decade and a half or so, I ventured out, wanted to try something different, did a little bit of consulting, and then eventually somebody connected me with EA because I love to play FIFA. FIFA is my favorite game.
Okay,
And yeah, it was like if you play this game this much, why don't you just go work there? And I've been here 6 years now.
Wow, that's amazing. That is amazing. I
And
appreciate
similar
you sharing
to
your story.
Evan's story, by the way, Evan, when you were talking about your mom, I kind of connected to that because
Mhm,
I started in a totally different industry as an engineer, embedded systems engineering.
mhm.
And coming into the gaming industry, it was something that I never kind of considered or thought about. It was just serendipity. So it was so cool to hear your mom's story. Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
And I would also add, like myself, I did not get it. Like, I didn't even realize I could be in the gaming industry. I didn't realize. I don't know. It just never occurred to me. I've been gaming since I was like 6 years old. The PlayStation One was my first console. I was playing A Bug's Life, Tomb Raider, Spyro, all that. And then, later on down the line, I fell completely in love with The Sims. Like, The Sims was, oh my, I always tell people that The Sims was my first love. And so like I didn't start there either. I didn't even know I was in education, and I just started playing around. I started an organization. I started learning and seeing like, oh wow, there's a place for me here. So I just love that everybody on this call has had such a unique, different path to get everybody to where they are today and on the Respawn team. Everybody has come from some different aspect. Their journeys are so different, but look at where they are now. So I definitely want to really call that out because that's really a great thing to see and to hear about. All right, so let's jump and talk a little bit more about Apex. So first of all, we want to know more about y'all as gamers before we get into the nitty gritty. So who is your favorite legend? If you have a main, who's your main? If not, who's your favorite legend? I want to know. I'm gonna start with Jordan.
Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna keep it simple. It's Bangalore, Newcastle, Sear, and Lifetime. You know, I made this joke, I think, when I was talking to getting into this interview, but every time I solo queue, it's just like Easter Ray. I'm rooting for everybody black.
Yes. Yes, I love that. And so a quick little slight spoiler for the chat. We have a very special Bangalore story coming up later on from Jordan. So y'all stay tuned for that. But yes, I'm here for it. I am here for it. How about you, Evan?
Yeah, I try to like generally play to the squad. So I'm solo queuing. I try to find a role that is generally missing, but usually it's usually a recon role. So I usually enjoy playing Bloodhound or Seer. But if I'm feeling more on the bit more of the offensive side, I really like Bangalore. I think Bangalore really vibes. I really like the speed boost, and then I feel like the smoke can be used offensively and
Yes.
defensively. So she feels very dynamic in that regard. The only thing she's missing is like maybe like a little vertical mobility, but you can't. Not a legend can't have every single power. So, but yeah. Those are probably my three I play the most. Yeah.
Yes, Bloodhound is one of my mains as well. I really love the way like their kit and everything. It feels good to me. How about you, Ade? Do you have a legend that you really like?
I would say no, but I'll jump on Jordan's boat. I'll ride with Jordan.
And what about you, Ali?
So if we're talking favorite, not like main in game, but just like overall favorite, I really like Revenant. Like I just think he's such a cool, like badass guy with the hand sword thing going on, the whole death guy thing. I love it. But if we're talking main, I gotta say Lifeline, but I understand exactly why everybody loves Bangalore because Bangalore has definitely uh saved my butt more times than I can count.
Yes.
But so
Yes.
was Lifeline.
Yeah, and so is like right. So is Lifeline.
Yep.
Honestly, like the Bangalore Lifeline like combo right there.
Yep.
Yes. Every time, every time, every time. So can y'all tell me a little bit about like what were your favorite games growing up? If you gamed growing up, what were your
We
games
just
that you was
we just
like,
jumping in, or
oh yeah, go ahead. Yeah, we can start with you, Jordan.
yeah, I mean, for me, man, I was a huge fighting game fan. Like, I loved like the almost a bad word, the trash talk, and I loved just being in the same room and like the whole trying to just really rub it in. But I would have to say Mortal Kombat and Tekken series for sure. And there's a funny story about that. I had an uncle, or I have an uncle. I won't say that. I have an uncle who he got the opportunity to play Jax in Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And I'll never forget when the movie comes out. He takes us all out, my family and his family are that out to go see the movie. We're watching the movie, and I'm like 7 years old. I'm like seeing him up on the screen, all super buff and yoked and stuff like that, being funny. And he takes us out to Olive Garden afterwards, and we're at this big table, and we're all sitting there, and he's screaming all over. He's having a great night and stuff like that, screaming all over, talking about it. And he points at me as this like 7-year-old, and he's like, who's your favorite character in Mortal Kombat? And I always think back to this, like Jax is such a technical character. Like playing Jax in a fighting game is not a 7-year-old's character, right? But having a gigantic man like ask you such a leading question, I had to say Jax.
Yeah.
And then that night, we all went back to his place, and he had a big screen TV and all this kind of awesome stuff. And he had a Tekken 2 tournament with like all the adults. And it was like the first time I had seen, like, the only example I had was my big brother and like all the little people, the young people playing video games. But it was like all these adults getting super turnt playing Tekken 2. And it was just like, that was always that experience. And that was always what fighting games embodied for me. So it'd be Mortal Kombat, Tekken, and then I just got to throw it in there because I spent way too many hours in these two games. Wu-Tang Shaolin Style and Def Jam Vendetta. Like,
Oh
unbelievable.
yes, Def Jam
Unbelievable.
Vendetta. Yes, 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 yes. First of all, not them peer pressuring you to say Jax.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Honestly, he did actually become my main in all Mortal Kombat's after the
Okay,
fact,
good.
because it's like, I'm like, you play, that's my uncle, like every time you sit down, you can't help but try. But
Yes, yes. How about you, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the game that really like opened up my brain to like what games could be was like the Super Mario Brothers on the Nintendo. That was like I played all the Atari, as as I grew up playing the Atari games, but then when I saw that game, I was like, whoa, this is what games could be. And then I played Zelda, and I was like, whoa, there's the opportunity there. But like, But like Jordan, the thing I actually identify most with games is like community, and so like in playing with friends. And so like when in the '90s, like fighting games were huge. So like I played a lot of Street Fighter, a lot of Samurai Showdown, a lot of King of Fighters. But then as we transitioned to like college, where we actually had like access to broadband internet, like we started playing like a ton of Counter Strike. We had hooked up the Xboxes and played a ton of Halo. And then when I graduated college, the way I kept in touch with my friends was competitive games. We played a lot of Dota, a lot of Counter Strike, um, a lot of Call of Duty. And so like that's where like I've really like kind of coalesced my career around. I look at like games where I've literally spent 1,000+ hours playing them. And so like Apex is another one of those games where like you can see people building friendships and bonds over it. So yeah, those are my
Yes.
most fond memories, is like the really good games with a really passionate community. It's been like my favorite experiences.
Yes. I'm so glad you brought up that point about community, because that makes such a huge difference. And it really can make or break a player's experience in a game. Like it really can. I really appreciate you bringing that up. Even, for example, like even with Apex in like our community, we hosted the Apex Academy. Like that literally was a community coming together, and people formulated like bonds from that, and still play together and have gone on to compete in other tournaments together. And like even just hearing their feedback about talking about the importance of like being a part of a community and how that helped them be more open to practicing and continuing to play the game, because they had people who would have their back, who they could laugh with, who they could connect with, and all of that. So yes, that's a great point. How about you, Ade?
Yeah, somehow growing up, I was told to stay away from games with guns and things like that. And I did.
Wow.
I followed instructions to the T. And, because I also did a lot of sports, naturally I gravitated towards sports game, and so it's always been my go-to game has always been FIFA, even as 93, 95, thereabout, and just never looked anywhere except sports for the most part, and still FIFA till today. Yeah.
Nice, nice. What about you, Ali? We have a comment in the chat telling you to blink twice.
I can't blink anymore. Oh man. When it comes to favorite games growing up, I gotta say that one of the standout ones has always been Smash, like Super Smash Brothers, like on the Nintendo 64. And the reason why is because that was one of the, how do I say this nicely? It was one of the it was a way to have friendly competition in my family. And today it still is. Like to this day, I still have a lot of memories and experiences playing with my family, like especially my brothers, funny enough, playing Smash Brothers. So that one's definitely one. And aside from that, I gotta say Ade was very much, I felt that when she said that she wasn't allowed to play games with shooting in it, because I wasn't either. So I would sneak and do it. And so anytime I snuck and did, I'd play Halo 3. And now that I'm a grown man and I'm allowed to do it, I still love Halo 3. So
Yes.
Smash, Halo 3, and maybe Fallout 3 could go on that list.
Yeah, both of you, were told to stay away from it. Now look at
And
look
now
at
I
where you
yeah, now I
are.
work on a shooter,
And now you literally work on a shooter.
forbidden fruit.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. All right, so we're gonna hop into talking about season 16, Revelry. So first of all, I'm really excited about this season. It just feels good. It feels really, really good, and I can really tell that there was a lot of thought put into like focusing on the player experience this season. So I really like the approach that the team has taken, and it seems like there's more of a priority about on the player experience and things like that, making it more holistic, adding new modes and things like that. The orientation matches, a new weapon, as opposed to adding a new legend, and it feels very refreshing. So, can you all share more about the decision to sunset arenas and introduce team deathmatch, and prioritizing that and control and gun run modes? I was a fan of arenas, but I also, even though I've been getting toe up in team deathmatch, I still am enjoying it. But I know arenas was also a popular mode. So can you all talk us through that decision process?
Yeah, sure. I can talk. I mean, I'm the one who made the decision to sunset arena, so I'll own that. So yeah, I mean, having looked at like the data and how arenas was being engaged and the player, talking to players and even internally is like we were proud we did arenas. It's a very polished and like a good mode, but it was good in like isolation. Arenas also has to live alongside the BR, and like both those modes had a lot of overlap in terms of like level of intensity, level of stakes, level, and it wasn't achieving our goal of like how do we provide a good on like onboarding and on ramping experience to Apex. That's what we're trying to do with TDM and gun run and control is like be able to get in there, practice the guns, not have to worry about the death penalty as much. Like if you die, you get right back in the fight versus in battle royale or arenas, it's very punishing. Like you're out, and then it's very hard to get those repetitions in. And then it also is another way to like counterbalance some of the intensity of a BR. And so, I've come off nights where I've had like 5 losses and like 5 like bottom 10 finishes in a row in ranked, which is not great. And then, but you go in and like play some team deathmatch or control or something like that, and like, okay, you kind of end the night on a good feeling. And that's what we want. We want players to like when they do finish playing their Apex session, they walk away feeling good, knowing that they had a good night and they have a chance to get better on the next day. And so while it was a tough decision to take arenas away, we really want to tool it to an experience that kind of fits more in terms like it stands on its own. It's not overlapping too much with the BR experience. And ideally it's not overlapping too much with a more casual experience. And so still like it's not gone, it's not dead, but we want to make sure we do it right when we bring it back.
Yeah. Well, that's good to know. But you mentioned making a more experience where people can like feel good after their games, and also I also think like team deathmatch is really good, and control I would say too, in terms of like helping you with that battle royale experience. Like, because if I go in team deathmatch or control and then go into battle royale, I feel much more polished and like much more like it's a good like experience to practice and like you said, not focusing on the deaths. I think players do focus a lot on dying. Well, I mean, I know I do. So, but taking off that pressure and knowing that you can kind of just keep going and keep getting better and things like that. So I definitely agree. And so, yeah, I know that it was a hard decision. It had to be a hard decision.
Oh yeah, it was not easy.
But we're enjoying team deathmatch. I'm hoping that it's gonna help me become more polished as well. Because a comment in chat is definitely team deathmatch because we be dying.
Yep. Same. Yep.
But this season, there were also quite a few changes being made to the firing range. And personally, I think the firing range at Apex is one of the best that I've seen. Like, it really feels just kind of immersive. And like, I feel like I have my own little place where I can just keep practicing. But we see that the dummies will have more mobility, the dynamic stats to help players track their performance and things like that, unlimited ammo. But since this is the first of several rounds of updates, can you share more about what the overall vision is for the firing range and what can your players expect in terms of like more improvements being made to it?
Yeah. So I think what we want the firing range to be is it's a low pressure, it's like non-existent pressure place just to practice. And so equivalent to I play a lot of basketball, like shooting free throws or practicing jump shots without the defense in your face. And so you're able to just really focus down. And it's mainly made for people who are they played the battle royale. They played like, man, I'm really enjoying this game. I want to get even better. And the firing range serves as that place where you can practice. And so we're trying to create an environment that is somewhat representative of the BR. So movement of shooting, moving targets and things of that nature, and the different shield levels. So you can get a sense of the time to kill. But in a way that you're in control and you can practice without the judgment or the pressure of potential failure. And so as we keep growing and expanding the firing range, that is our North Star, as a place to practice with low stakes, and you can just like get the focus reps in for as long as you want, very free form.
Yes. And it definitely feels like you all are like heading in that in that direction, especially with these new changes. So we're excited to see what more you all continue to do with it. Because I think I really appreciated that when I first started playing Apex and was able to go in there. Like I really appreciated that because I'm like, whoa, instead of just being like thrown into BR and not having no place to kind of just sit and be like, wait a minute, let me catch up to what just happened or what I need to do, and things like that. So I really, really am looking forward to seeing what you all continue to do with it. So what was the motivation behind implementing the orientation matches for new players? And can we expect more features in the future that cater towards that like new player experience for those who are just getting in or hopping in?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a number one priority for Apex is to how do we keep getting new players? And our goal, is to be the everlasting hobby, a game that lasts for 20 plus years. It's an ambitious goal, and we're still a long way from that. But if you want to achieve that goal, you have to provide an easy way for people to come in and learn the hobby and practice. And so, any game that's been on, we'll take again basketball. A perfect example is like when I started playing basketball around for 75 years, and I didn't learn by this, like throw me in 5v5 and just start shooting. I was like, well, no, like there was like coaching and leagues and like, okay, you're 8 years old, let me teach you. Now you're 9, 10. And so we're going to constantly providing that onboarding experience. And so our orientation matches is our first implementation, is the first step of many we're going to take. We're learning a lot, we're getting a lot of data, and we'll be evolving that experience season over season, probably for the next several years.
Ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited about that. Because even again, going back to like when we were hosting like the academy and things like that, the Apex Academy, we had a lot of new players, a lot of folks who were new and just trying to get their bearings and things like that. So when we do it again, like I'd be very happy to like that they'll have that. So when they do go into like the match, and if they're brand new, like they will have more of a cushion for them to like get in there. So I'm excited for that. And I think it'll just make the new player experience like more robust and things like that. So we are excited for it. Next thing I want to talk about though, which is something that I'm also really excited about, are the legend classes that were new this season, or the remastered legend classes, and the in-game class perks. So what was the design process like for that? And are there team compositions that you favor or you think work really well together given the new remastered legend classes?
Yeah. So where that started quite literally is when I started on Apex, I actually talked to every single like team lead and various team members and said, what are your major pain points with Apex? And a lot of it came back to, we're on this constant making a new legend, new maps, new guns constantly. And we have all this stuff that we never have time to do. Like we want to rework various abilities, we want to work weapons, we want to work. And I was like, well, how about if we actually did it? Like, what would that look like? And it started from, what are like the legends team mainly looking at? We had the classes at launch, but they really didn't mean much, like assault, recon, and support. Like they were kind of there, but like it really just pick your favorite and go, pick your main and go.
Exactly.
And now we want to create a setup where like squad composition matters. So maybe it doesn't matter when you're just learning, but as you're getting to the higher skill tier, squad composition matters more. And so like we're trying to create, called interesting choice. And so you notice we have 5, not 3, because now you have to make the hard choice of not having every single ability. And so while it'd be like, recon super compelling, and then like support for more ammo in the bins, or for the support bins, and then the assault for the ammo and the ammo bins, but then you don't have control, so you don't have the ring position. So like, what do you value? And I don't, it's funny, people ask me like, yeah, what do you think is the dominant or the potential thing? I actually don't know, because like our play tests are such a small slice, only a few hundred people versus the millions that are playing, watching the strategies emerge. So yeah, following some streamers, I'm really excited for when we have our next ALGS tournament, and they really, the pros can really show how they flex and break the systems in the sandbox. So yeah, but that's where it started, was like, how do we create more diversity of choice? How do we create choice that's interesting and meaningful? And then how do we create impactful like moments of power? And so that's what we tried to do. And so far it seems it's going well. So we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think it really forces the players and the teams to be strategic. Like you have to think more about strategy. You can't just go in there. It's not just about picking the character, the legends that you're comfortable with, but like you got to strategize. And that honestly, I think is going to encourage more players to learn more of the legends and not just stick to like the ones that they're comfortable with. But you're going to need to be flexible and like fluid in your play style, and you're going to need to be able to, move around.
Yep.
You ain't gonna, it's not always gonna work with your main, but like if you at least pick a character in each class that you can be comfortable with, that's gonna really boost you up in terms of your play style, especially if you want to compete, and things like that. So it definitely feels very intentional. And it adds another layer of strategy to the game, which I'm really excited to see, even for myself. Like I've been trying some new folks as well. But I'm really excited to see how people like strategize and really think critically about what they're playing and how they want to play them. So absolutely. All right, so my next question is about the new weapon in town. So we got a new weapon on the scene, and I love a new weapon. So let's chat about Nemesis. It's a new energy assault rifle. And it fires 4 rounds per burst. So I read that you all, and this is where I'm trying to get a little spicy. I read that y'all are encouraging some friendly competition with this gun, hoping that it'll unseat some of the fan favorites like the R301 and the Flatline. Now I feel personally attacked because I like the R301. But can y'all give us a tea on this and wanting to mix it up?
Yeah. So the Nemesis was actually in development when I first started, and we were evaluating our weapon lineup, what we're doing, and at the time, over a year ago, it really was just like, well, I asked why Nemesis, why now, and they were just like, well, we just need an energy assault rifle, and I was like, that's not a good answer. Like, what is the role? What is the role? Anytime we add something now, the game has gotten so large and so complicated. When we add something, we have to be very deliberate.
Yes.
And so with the Nemesis, I challenged the team, and they came back like, look, like we want an assault rifle triangle. We want like the Flatline, the R301, and then the Nemesis. And that when you have 3 choices, that's interesting. It's not like a binary. Now you're making an interesting choice. And so to help, and this is like a pretty common design philosophy, to help drive that home, to make people switch, we have to design for impact. When something gets added to the game, it has to be like so disruptive that you're like, wait, okay, I have to get off my comfort zone. Like if a game, if something doesn't come in and disrupt, then it's almost like it never existed at all. And so that's why we came in pretty hot right now. And like I would argue it's contentious, but at the same time too, data's coming back, users coming back. People like the first couple of days, it was a bit, people were like using it a bit too much, but now they're seeing the weaknesses and strengths, and you're seeing that debate come up. And we still have a ways to go. Like the gun still, we'll tune it over the next several seasons, but yeah, it did its job of coming in and like forcing conversation and making people make an interesting choice, which is what we're always trying to achieve.
Definitely. Well, I think you all definitely achieved that, or are on the path to achieving it as well. So, all right, I'm gonna hop into. I want to talk to Aday for a second. Talk about some senior engineering manager things, because that's a pretty significant role. But so let's chat as the senior engineering manager. So you are the go-to person for managing a lot of key operations and like supervising the engineering team and things like that. And so I've heard in general that it can be like herding cats. But just tell us what your day-to-day is like.
I am actually really lucky in that regard because the way we're set up, we have a group of folks that we call production people, a production team that actually help and take care of the coordination with planning and all of that. On the engineering side itself, I'm also very lucky because we were structured. We have a team lead and a bunch of senior engineers that handle the day-to-day, like providing technical guidance to the less experienced engineers and handling interdisciplinary collaborations that work on the game and ensure that engineers are kind of building the game in accordance to our engineering practices. So for me, most of my day-to-day actually in meetings, sometimes strategic meetings, sometimes one-on-ones with the team members, and then also helping solve problems that the team have brought to my attention, working on initiatives and doing long-term thinking. My days are different. On Wednesdays, as an example, because we have this thing we call no meeting Wednesdays, I'm able to go heads down a little bit and focus on long-term thinking. Fridays, I do outside work from Respawn. I spend some time with folks, engineers at other studios at EA, helping them with things like their technical work, the less experienced engineers at other studios, and doing some mentoring along that line.
That's
And I
great.
also, yeah, and I also take some time on Friday to focus on my professional growth as well. So, in terms of herding, I am lucky that I don't have to do that on a daily basis. I think more of a high level type work.
Nice. So you have a pretty jam-packed but also structured week. And
Yeah,
especially in addition to like your work with Respawn, but also being a mentor and helping other engineers in their work and their journey. Like that's very important. And it's very like, how do you even just make the time to do all that? Because it's just so much. But I appreciate the no meeting Wednesdays. We have no meeting days on Fridays sometimes at work where I work. So those are very, very important. um so to kind of piggyback off of that, so I've worked for a game studio before as a community manager. I've seen how chaotic it can get at times when you're making a game, launching a game, a new season, and all those things, getting everyone on the same page. So there are clearly a lot of talented folks on this team. And working on a game as popular as Apex Legends, how do you kind of wrangle everyone and like make sure things are running smoothly?
yeah, that's what I was speaking to earlier. That's where the production team comes into play. So
Mhm.
they help with the wrangling. They are the one
Okay.
putting all, because I mean we have so many disciplines, so many departments.
Mhm.
Jordan, Alejandro, and
Mhm.
they're all from different departments, right? And so
Mhm.
the glue logic, if I can put it that way, is the production team. They are the ones that bring everybody together and help figure out the plan and the timeline for the
Mhm.
delivery, right? For shipping the game. And so what
Mhm.
I just have to do in my position now is kind of create the right environment for the engineers to do their work. So
Mhm.
I think I have it easy, to be candid. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, my last question for you would be, what advice would you have for folks who want to do something similar to you, to your role? I know that you are, mentoring people, but like, what is like, if you could give like one key piece of advice, what would it be?
That's difficult because there is no magic sauce. And I feel like all the advice that have been passed down from generations, like mentoring, uh, being part of communities that share one's values and uplift individuals,
Mhm.
things like finding the people that will invest in you, is just what we have to continue to kind of emphasize and make sure that we're living by. For me personally, though, I want to encourage everyone on the call to always be open to exploring, trying to find positives in the twists and turns of life. Never believing that one path is the right path. Your path for you is the right path.
Yes.
Money, your path will be unique to you. Celebrate that. And if I can steal from Steve Jobs, I would say, stay hungry, stay foolish.
Yes, yes. There is, especially the your path. Stay on your path. And I think even in this day and age with social media and being online so much, I think it's really easy to compare yourself and like look at other people's path and think that you're supposed to be at a certain point on your path. And like that's just it's not healthy. Even though, I think we all do it, but it's important to really pull back and always come back to your path, your journey. What are things that you are passionate about? What do you want to accomplish? What's for you? So I definitely wholeheartedly believe that as well. All right, so we're gonna move on over and chat with Ali for a second.
Oh,
uh yes, our amazing animator at Respawn. So before we do that, though, I'm gonna pull up because I want you all to see just how amazing all the things that Ali has done and is doing. So we have we're gonna play this little reel real quick.
Ah, the
So you
Apex
all can
reel.
see, yes. So this is Ali's Apex reel. So we're just gonna have it playing while we chat about animation. So first of all, when I think about like the character animation in Apex, I think it's one of the best examples out there in terms of really showcasing like their personalities and like bringing them to life to a point where you can really feel like connected to them and things like that. So what's your process for keeping their movements and everything so authentic to each character?
So from really early on in the game's development, especially when it came to the animation team, we knew that it would be really important to make Apex Legends really, about the legends. And so, in order to do that, we always have to try and keep in mind and take special measures to make sure that every one of these characters, whatever they're doing, it's remaining true to their personality and also like keeping their mannerisms and overall attitude in line with who they are. It's really hard to do that over time. So it's always taking like a constant amount of feedback from each other. We're sending ideas back and forth like, hey, do you think this emote would work? I have an idea for this execution. What do you think? And as a team, we'll kind of make decisions and be like, yeah, yeah, I don't know if this fits. Maybe we could adjust this and that. I don't think, like, for example, I don't think Newcastle would do this. And then the feedback kind of generates better ideas over time. And also as animators, it's our job to really put ourselves in the shoes of each character and make these kind of decisions. It's not so much like, would Revenant make a thumbs up emote? It's like, how would Revenant do a thumbs up emote, if that makes
Yes,
sense, right? So
yes.
uh it's really just our job to kind of become them, whether we're keyframing the animation or using mocap. And in regards to mocap, at the end of the day, we really do rely on a lot of great talent, from whether it's some of the animators hopping in a mocap suit, or from getting external talent to really bring these characters to life with great performances. And when it comes to the performances, the biggest things that we worry about is whether it's authentic, but most importantly, it's, whether it's fun. So, yeah, that's kind of how the process goes. I can get more in depth with like, this is how we begin and this is how it leads to the end product if you'd like to.
Yeah, so you mentioned I love the point about Revenant and like
Oh, yeah,
not
yeah.
necessarily like would he put a thumbs up, but how would he do it? Not picturing Revenant doing a thumbs up emote in the way that he would do it. And I like
Exactly.
that distinction. Like, no, it's about the how. And I think that's how you really can like get into understanding, like bringing out the like their personalities and things like that. So when you are like, let's just say you working on a new legend or you're working on animating them, what is your starting point? Like where do you start for that?
Well, the first thing we have to do is find the character.
Mhm.
Like uh with any of these guys, the main thing that we're trying to do is figure out who they are and what they're about. Like, for example, if we were, let's say that we took Revenant, for example. We know that Revenant is a simulacrum. He really wants to die, but he can't. He hates his life, and he kind of hates everybody else. So we have a general starting point. And so when it comes to generating these ideas, we'll spend a lot of time in, I guess, like pre-production, where it's like kind of just going kind of bonkers with our ideas. There are some things that we know probably won't work, but we try it anyways just to see how it
Mhm.
feels for everybody
Mhm.
else. So, yeah, when it comes to that, we just mostly try to focus on figuring out what the overall attitude and performance of this character is going to be like. And once we kind of have like a Bible determined for each
Mhm.
person, we kind of go from there. and it makes it a lot easier to make decisions later on down the line. Like, yeah, this doesn't really feel like Bloodhound because we've kind of established a brand for
Mm.
their personality, if that makes sense.
Yes, yes, that makes perfect sense. And I can definitely see how that would like make the process better in terms of like figuring out or like animating them because when you like you said when you have that like that Bible and that
Yes.
entails like their brand and everything that they're doing and things like that, like it I can definitely see how that makes the process easier and it's a good place to start.
Yeah, and
um
it also does require a lot of cross collaboration between
mhm,
different people.
mhm.
Like, uh, for example, like characters' abilities might inform a lot of their performances. Their background, like, from narrative will determine a lot of stuff too. So, yeah, there's a lot of back and forth. And, concept, obviously, we have to know what the character looks like to know what we're working with. So, yeah,
Mhm.
a lot of
Yeah,
collab.
definitely. Okay, so really quick, my last question for you. What's your favorite thing about animating? What's the part that you get to, you're like, oh, this is my favorite part about doing this whole process and I'm ready to dive in.
Man,
Uh-oh,
the
I feel
favorite
like I
thing
just
about
stressed you out.
animating. No, I think I got you. It's the strange feeling you get from knowing that you took something that started off like this and
Mhm,
turned it into something that you can almost believe is real. It's just the fact that you are bringing life to an inanimate object that makes animation so compelling for me. And yeah, there's nothing quite like seeing something go from 0 to 100, but also seeing how people
mhm.
react to it once you put it out. So yeah, that's what I like about it.
Yes, yes. I'm of course not an animator, but I do project management and things like that. And a similar process when I get to that end point and see something, all these ideas that started all the way out here and it comes down here and everything is all listed and everything comes together and then seeing how people respond to it. I can definitely relate to that.
Yeah,
All
for
right.
sure.
So we're gonna move on and chat with Jordan for a minute about sound things and about a very one of well clearly a lot of y'all's favorite legend, Bangalore. But before we hop into that, so one of the things that I really appreciate about Apex is the sound design. We've had folks in chat talking about talk like really just reiterating the sound design and everything like that and how much they like it. So even from when you first enter the lobby, dropping into a match and things like that, everything feels very immersive and it honestly like just gets you hype every single time. I get a rush every time. Apex, I always say Apex is what is like the only shooter that gives me this really unique adrenaline rush that I get from like playing a horror game. Like it just be like I be screaming. Y'all gonna see it's a clip later. I'm gonna show y'all gonna see. But it gets you hype every single match. So I think it also does a good job of like seamlessly kind of fading into the background when you land. That gets quiet and you like can really focus on hearing enemies and things like that. So how did you land on like the style and like the sounds of things? Like what is that process like for you to like in making everything blend so well together?
Yeah. Well, that's awesome that you like it, first of all. But this is gonna be a little bit redundant because I feel like we've, Ali kind of kind of spoke to that.
Mhm.
Oh, awesome, the ash lighting, cool. Ali kind of spoke to that, kind of spoke to this, but you know, Apex and everything that we end up doing in sound is the end of the line, right? It's post production, right? And so everything up to that point kind of already has to be amazing and kind of make sense.
Mhm.
And it feels like it's our job to, as sound designers, to create a sonic uh, to do the sonic storytelling that kind of puts the cherry on top and completes that aesthetic vision.
Mhm.
And I know I think about that when I was thinking about watching Ali's reel constantly play because I did a lot of those animations. But thinking about how he had talked about Revenant. How does Revenant's thumb, all that kind of stuff, right? And then thinking about, Tyler, who designed it, the ideas of like, well, we know what robots are, we know that they have servos, we know that they're these material types, but how do we take these material types and we infuse them with an emotional kind of emotional information, right? Like taking horror sounds, or like when I designed Bangalore's Ultimate, I think of her aesthetic being military. So I'm like going through World War II air wave sounds or air raid sounds, sirens and things like that, and trying to create and stay close to an aesthetic that sells the fantasy. In terms of being immersive, I'm going to say with complete bias that Eric Kraber, my director, is an absolute genius. But there's also a focus from early on maintaining clarity in the mix when you are in different portions of the game, and being very clear about what you want to take priority. And he kind of achieved that by like, a perfect example, starting with the guns, right? Like he made sure that the guns, both in the hands of the players and fired in the world, right, all had a very unique character, but not just when you fire them and not just when you hear them, but at every single distance, right? Like let's make a very specific, unique sound at multiple distances, that so as you get away from them, you still know what that gun is, you still know where it came from, you still aesthetically connect with it. And then on top of that, let's make sure that every environment also is cohesive with that same unique character. And then from there, let's do that with every single other thing, right? Like footsteps and Foley and environmental things, right? He made sure that us as his designers, gave or prioritize that detail at distance, at environment, at every single step of the way. And then you get to the point where we have all of these detailed things that don't technically work together when they're all playing. You have to then create like a system of logic or a system of priority that allows you to pick and choose when certain sounds take priority, right? So like when you fall into the game and you're playing the game, what you're really hearing is all of these detailed sounds that we've created at different distances and stuff, basically flying in and out based on a lot of play testing and a lot of feedback. What is the most important, right? So when you're in a firefight, we have these priority systems, these logical systems that go like, well, obviously I need to hear these sets of guns before I hear anything else, right? Like if somebody's firing, that's really terrifying, that's something that can really damage me, so I need to make sure that takes precedent in the mix, so everything else can kind of get a little bit quieter. But I also need footsteps, right? So there has to be a level by which these things come in and out, and that really kind of accentuates that that immersiveness, but also the functionality of the game itself. And I think that's what plays into the idea of it being a horror film or a horror thing. And I think about that often too, because I play a lot too, and I'm terrified. Like I just got for the first time in my life like a surround system outside of like working in surround, but having one and then playing Apex, I like
Oh
the
my
amount of
God.
broken objects that are in my living room because I freak out. And like the anxiety attacks I have because everything is so point source when in certain situations, right? Like, but yeah, a lot of that is just really trying to create these systems by which all of the detail, all the sounds we put in detail, all the aesthetically correct sounds that we have know their place.
See, I knew it. See, somebody called me out yesterday when I was playing, and they said only Brandy would scream like Apex is a horror game. But see, now y'all know. No, see, now I have research. I have the devs right here backing me up. They are affirming what I be going through. Because
you're not screaming when you're being attacked. I don't think we did a good job.
Like I be stressed. It's like, oh my, same way in a horror game when you hear all the important sounds. It's the same thing in Apex. I hear everything, and then I get shook.
It didn't matter because I was too scared. I heard everything. I was too scared.
Right. Exactly. So I'm glad that you said that, because see, now I know that I knew what I was talking about. Okay, So I think my last question before we go, we're gonna take a quick break, a quick little 5-minute break. But my last question that I want to ask before the break is more so about just the diversity in the game. Like Apex is one of the most, in terms of like the legends as well. Like it's one of the most diverse games out there. And it started like that. Like at launch, it had a diverse like bucket of legends that you could play, different, not even just like visual diversity, but of course like their kids, their backstories and all that kind of stuff. And so the characters encompass a wide range of identities and representation and everything like that, which is honestly very refreshing. How do you all make sure to like continue that trend of adding diverse characters while keeping it authentic to the game and the lore?
I mean, I can answer that.
Okay.
I'm the white guy in the room. I'll just call it. But like, I will say, I mean, I think the big thing is you have to have authentic characters need to be made by authentic people, right? And so we really emphasize on making sure that the characters you create are reviewed, or even the best way is to actually have them created by people who understand their background. So like for Newcastle, we had Iffy, who was an African American writer, and like you really feel like he represents, I mean, that experience. With Catalyst, like we had transgender staff members, like take a look at her, make sure she's staying authentic. When we made it explicitly a decision to hire a transgender voice actress and a transgender mocap actor. And so that's super important to us, is that like, and I wasn't here at the beginning of Apex, but even was introduced to me when I got here, was like how much they value diversity and how much authentic it has to be, because we want Apex to be a reflection of humanity, right? And so you have to show the entire spectrum from all the nations, all the cultures. And so we have Asian and North American and Europe and South American, and we still have plenty to go. So like every character that we're adding, we're making sure we're adding another character that authentically represents a culture. And yeah, and it's a ton of work, but it's totally worth doing, because because people can pick up inauthenticity very quickly. And we don't want to do that. And it's a core to our culture here.
Absolutely. Great answer. I just love that you all have done that, like from the start, and even doing more like behind the scenes. So it's one thing to like see a character and their identities, but like you all do the research and the people behind the character as well, and the people designing the character. Like, so it's like it's like a ripple effect. It doesn't just start there. Like it's not just forward facing to the players, but even the folks behind the scenes. And like that really shows like you all's commitment to having a diverse, inclusive, and authentic roster, game, and player experience. So, Jordan, did you have something?
I'd like to add. So, I was here at the beginning of Apex, and I would say, and I agree with what Evan is saying, especially the way it's grown. We've grown as a company, and we've made a lot of strides in terms of trying to make sure that the people making the game, are represented in the game. But I would say from inception, I don't think we had that same we didn't have that same kind of diversity when creating the original cast of players. But what we had were people who realized that without the effort and without the dedication to trying to create that kind of environment and trying to move in a direction, not only through hiring practices, but even just purely from a artistic perspective. We have people who were predominantly, at the time, it was predominantly not people of color who wanted to attempt and do the best and at creating a roster that was more diverse from the beginning. And I think it's almost like this cyclical or self-fulfilling or a snowball, all the different words you can use for putting an effort into solving a problem of not being inclusive through any means that any tools that you have available, eventually can lead to inclusivity, and then from then on can then build upon itself. And I think as somebody who's been here for a long time, it's been amazing to be able to see being a team that was like, I kind of felt like it was only me at certain points, to something that's way more, diverse, way more inclusive than I could have imagined. Like it's beautiful. It's like it will always,
It
no
is.
matter what I do with my career, I think, and I'm going to touch on this in a lot more detail when I talk about Bangalore, but I just feel like this will always be probably the proudest I'll ever be working on a game, because the people that I started with were so dedicated to that from the start, and they didn't know what they were doing. It was great. It was perfect.
Yes, yes. Love that. So going back to, you mentioned Bangalore, so let's go ahead and hop in and talk about Miss Bangalore, because we have a very special person on the team who was a part of her creative process and designed her. So in addition to, of course, the amazing sound design, Bangalore is obviously a fan favorite, especially in our community. And I say that even talking about like the character representation, like you all started off with Bang, like, you know what I'm saying? Like you started off there. And like for me, it's not common that like Black female characters, especially, they get added later. They're like a kind of, they feel like an afterthought in a lot of games. People don't really start off with that. And so like that is appreciative for us being able to even just start playing this game, and I immediately can play with somebody who I can identify with. And like that, I don't know if y'all know how impactful that is, but I'm telling you right now, it's very impactful. But yeah, Jordan, talk to us about Bangalore.
Yeah. So this, I always get like super emotional when I talk about this, because it's just a huge part of, actually a better way to say it, getting the opportunity to work on Bangalore has been and was a life-changing experience. It's, like I said before, probably going to be one of the proudest moments of my life, and I'm going to try my hardest to not cry. Anyway,
Me too.
so my
I'm
sister,
already tearing up.
yeah, I know. So my sister Angela, which is on the left, I think, if you guys, I don't know if everybody sees what we see, but on the left, she had released her book, The Turner House, in 2015. And it was like the first book, because I wasn't a big reader. I like to read now, but it was like the first book I had really actually read from beginning to end, because like my big sister wrote it, and I'm like, this is awesome, and when she had finally got around to asking me like what I thought about it, I didn't feel like I had the competency to really explain. So I was like, it was good, and it was like very obvious how insulting that was to somebody who just spent, 5 years writing a novel and all these things happening, and having her little brother be like, yeah, it's cool. But I didn't know how to express how I felt about it. And so, from that point on, I was like, I'm going to start reading, because I'm going to get good at reading books, so I can talk to my author sister and I can let her know that how I really feel and all this kind of stuff, and skip forward 2 years later, I'm getting a job as a junior sound designer, December 2017, and so I'm invited to my first Respawn holiday party. And at the time, because of my reading situation, I was reading Ta-Nehisi Coates's Between the World and Me, and I'm getting super deep into it. And at the time of the party, I get to the chapter where he talks about his experience in France as a Black man. And it kind of started to make me really wonder about the relationships that certain cultures or communities kind of have with their Black population. And it started to feel like people in their own country tend to have this, not holistically negative, but this negative relationship, or this negative view of their own Blacks, right? It's like when you have situations, this is all speculative, right? Like at the time I didn't have any facts or anything like that, but it felt as if though a lot of the representation that we had in a lot of games for me growing up were of quote unquote Blacks from other area, not American Blacks or Black Americans, and then you have a lot of discourse even in other places in France and things like that with Senegalese and the people that are their Black population, and it seemed like there was always this kind of discourse between people's own Black populations. So I am considerably drunk at my first holiday party, and I don't really know anybody on the team, but I talk a lot. And I happen to just jump right into this rant about, and I think at the time, I think the term Black Panthering us was hot, like the idea that like, why you always got a Black Panther us, you know? And I'm talking. I just so happened to be talking to Griffin Dean, who was the lead character designer at the time, and he was in the process of trying to figure out what the initial Apex roster was. And I asked him, why do you like character designers, obviously saying this without having any real understanding of how games work, because this is literally my first game job, but I'm like, how come you're always putting in these black people with like European or African accents? And I told him, I was like, I always feel like I get left out as a black man, and especially my sisters who are gamers. My sister Candace, who's pictured in the center on the right, she introduced me into my nerdom, right? Like took me to my first Pokemon. When Pokemon, the first movie came out, she like picked me up and took me there and like made me feel super comfortable being a black nerd, you know? And so I really kind of always thought about the fact that like, if I don't have anybody as a black man to really feel like I can connect to, that my sisters definitely don't as nerds, you know what I mean? Like they absolutely don't. And so I'm kind of just opening up to this guy, kind of talking out of my butt a little bit because I don't have any facts, and I'm still in my wokeness stuff because I just read Ta-Nehisi Coates, so I'm just like feeling like I know everything, you know. But I get back on Monday, and I get a knock on the door, and it's Griffin, and I'm almost certain I lost my job because I talked way too much. And I was surprised when he was like, you know, he had spent the weekend thinking about what I had said, and he wanted my help in creating what had eventually become Bangalore. And so him and Mo, who was an absolutely, you know, creative designer, he's a beast of a creative designer, had asked me, and I want to really emphasize that, like in the most sincere, like non-tokenizing way that a company can, had asked me to help in basically doing, which is in many ways kind of impossible, but like representing a version of the black American experience without it being a negative or lazy stereotype, right? Like they never pressured me, or they never made me feel like I was like I was going to be the spokesperson for blackness, but they were sincere in the idea that like, we don't know what we're doing, and you know, we want some help. And
Yeah.
so the first thing I did was I called my big sister Angela, and I was like, you know, hey, what's it mean to be black? You know, she was, you know, like, I was like, whoa, like, she's like, first of all, who's asking? You know, like why'd they ask that? Like, you know, and after all the big sister preventative checks and balances, we spent a few hours kind of really trying to find these cultural through lines from basically, you know, post Reconstruction Black America, right? Like trying to figure out what has been something that we can kind of convey as blackness as best we can. You know, it's still a sliver of the experience, but what's a through line there, right? And we kind of settled on the idea of military being a major contributor, not only to our fight as you know, as Black Americans, to be recognized as more than second-class citizens, but like in many ways garnishing a sense of pride in the nation that we helped build with our own hands, right? It's like we built this place, and then we also had the opportunity to protect it, you know, through the military and raise in the ranks. And even when you have situations where you have, you know, people coming back from World War II and not getting the GI Bill, and all of the kind of traumatizing experiences that we've had throughout this country, right? Like the fact that we still fought for this and we continue to fight for this, you know, it's not only evident in many ways, you know, culturally, music and all these other things, but military is also one of them. And so at the end of it, she was like, well, you know, you should pitch who is our older sister, Candace, who's pictured on the right, who is an officer in the military as well, along with my father. And ultimately, like, you know, my sisters, they've been my heroes. I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers, you know, and my siblings overall have always been my heroes. And Angela and Candace have always been my heroes. I met them when I was 9 years old, and literally ever since I met them, I just wanted to do something that would make them proud of me. And so when Griffin and Mo had come back periodically, as I was kind of hashing this out, you know, I felt like the best representation of a Black female was them. And so that's basically, you know, for me, outside of me, because I also want to really emphasize that, like, the team had already decided that they were going to do the best they can. So I'm not going to sit here and inflate my involvement in Bangalore in any other way, except for the fact that, you know, I'd helped out where I could. But to me, Bangalore will always be Candace and Angela. And I feel like there's no better way to show how much I kind of hold them so highly in regard, so in such high regard, without, or I felt like this was my ability to kind of show how much I really, 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 really appreciate and look up to them, is kind of risking, in my mind, risking my job to try and get a version of them on screen, and a version of, or somebody that they would be proud playing as, you know, as nerds.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Wow, Jordan. First of all, what a story. Like, Bangalore already meant a lot to us, but like hearing the thought that went into creating her, and also the Respawn team who wanted to make sure that they got this right. You know, like they wanted to make sure to get this right. And I really appreciate you bringing up the fact that when you do see Black characters in games, like the Black American experience is often left out. It is often, you know, they don't really prioritize that. They don't prioritize that representation. And I think a lot of companies do see Black people as a monolith, and they think, oh, well, if we can get, you know, somebody that's, you know, Black and European, or even,
Right.
you know, African and things like that, they think that that's it. Like, oh, well,
Right.
there's your character, you're good. And it's like, no,
Right.
we're not a monolith. We have a wide variety of experiences, a wide variety of everything, of history and things like that. And it's important to really hone in on that and not put us all in one box like that and expect us to just go with it. Like, no, where's the part? Like, just because this person is Black, that doesn't mean I identify similarly to them. They have a completely different Black experience than mine.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so, like, you know,
absolutely.
I think I agree. You know, I appreciate that so much. Like Bangalore, wow, I'm speechless. I don't even know what else to say after that story. Over here trying to hold back my own tears.
I mean, this is the first time I
Voice all
didn't tear up.
trembling.
Like, I was typing it, I was like, oh my God, I love you, sisters. You know, like, I was losing my mind the whole time.
Yes. So I really appreciate that, and we're loving that. We're gonna take a quick break. And when we get back, we'll take just a couple of questions from the audience that our mods have collected. We'll take maybe about 2 or 3 questions, and then we're gonna wrap up. So you all don't go anywhere, as we will be right back. We're just gonna take a quick little break to stretch. Make sure y'all get up and stretch, get some water, things like that. And thank you, Jordan, for sharing this story about Bangalore. Seriously,
Thanks for the
again,
opportunity.
yes, I cannot express just how special that was. And yeah, we're definitely, if we weren't Bangalore stands before, we definitely are now.
I hope everybody in the world is, because that's what I want
Yes.
to show for my sister. I really
Yes.
do. Like that, like every time
Yes.
I get to be at family, be like, I did it. You can't.
Yes, you better.
Better be proud of me. I made y'all a character now.
Yes. But we will be right back. So you all, again, audience chat, don't go anywhere. Once we get back, we will take some questions for the audience. But in the meantime, enjoy a couple of special clips from our stream team reveal and some co-crew playing Apex. We'll be back. All right. We are returning back to stream to wrap up our amazing interview. First of all, this has just been absolutely great. It really has. You all have shared so many thoughtful, special things with us today, and we are so happy that you all have done that. So we just have a couple of questions from the chat. that I'll start off. So, first question is from Bjord. So this is for Jordan, I believe. So, what kinds of challenges does the sound design face with the implementation of new legends, abilities, weapons, and other variables?
So it is very contextual in the sense of when we're creating new, whether it be legends or guns and things like that, we have to really look at the way they're going to shape the sonic landscape. To give you a very like more practical and specific example, it's like when I did Ash, she is coming into a realm where she's a full non-human character, and up to that point we had very specific ranges of like footsteps that existed because these characters are typically heavier. They're typically have this, the aesthetic of Apex is very like, it's sci-fi obviously and futuristic, but it's also kind of gritty and grounded, but also kind of like almost like these are things that happen in the outland. We put some stuff together and we're really smart, and so it's got this weight to it. But she's this very sleek sounding legend, and we have these kind of archetypes or these kind of aesthetics in other legends. But the challenge that I run into is like, oh, how do I do this with like metal? Like how do I implement this sleekness with this character sound that we've kind of fit into a space, and still make it easily recognizable, but also loud enough so people can hear, but also accurate to how thin or how small the character is. And I think a lot of that is really where the challenges come, is finding where we can combine aesthetic, or kind of complete the fantasy aesthetically, while also making sure that it functions well for gameplay. Like we don't want people missing footsteps. We don't want people missing gunshots, even if the gun is maybe in a different register, or it's supposed to be boomy, or it's more satisfying. That all means something in the sonic field. And so I think the challenge is really just trying to get a sense of cohesion between, I want to say form and function. I don't know if that actually works that way. I don't know if that phrase actually works that way, but I'm gonna use it for that.
Thank you for sharing that. And pointing out this comment right here, it does seem challenging with something that technically doesn't really exist, because there's not, Ash is not human. So, it is very cool, and a cool challenge, if you will. So next question is from SD Core. So are there any plan? I think this is for Evan. Are there any plans for more training-esque practice, or like scripted practice mode? So they're saying that training for newer players could also could be expanded and to introduce more complexity.
Yeah, the thing I will say is that we're always prototyping a lot of systems that we onboard players and how we best teach them. And we're also looking to see how players like are reacting to the firing changes that are in this season, and we have some coming in the following season. So yeah, I can't say like exactly what we're building, but it's definitely on our radar, and we're definitely working on it.
Awesome. And then another question from Bijurid is, this is for everyone. How do you all how's your work-life balance? Work-life balance. How do you all manage that?
It's good. I could end it there, but I'll speak on my experience. Uh, I honestly believe that, at least on the Apex team, well, we've done a really good job at making sure that we're well paced as far as how we approach content and how we're releasing it, and kind of sticking to the schedule that works best for us, so that we're not, ripping our hair out of our faces by the end of, you know, by the end of our lock dates. Um, but no, generally speaking, I'm gonna go ahead and quote uh Sean, the animation director on the LA team. He'd always say, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. Meaning that it's not about getting there as quickly as possible. It's just about getting there. So this game is a live game, and it's it's here for the foreseeable future. So we have to make sure that we're doing it at a rate that's sustainable. So yeah, we do emphasize work-life balance here a lot. That's
Yes,
my
come on,
experience.
sustainability. Let's go.
I would like to piggyback on that as somebody who saw the transition from being just Respawn to Respawn under EA basically. I remember back in the day, it's like you walk into, at least with the audio team, you walk into a room with your director, and there's just like this big whiteboard with all this crap that needs to be done, and it was kind of just like, I'm gonna do that, and it's like we're just kind of picking these random things and having like there was obviously a sense of scope and there was a sense of all these things, but that kind of went out the window when it was just Respawn, at least in my experience, and it was all of us just trying to like make it all happen, and then EA comes in and they like provide this awesome group of like project managers and all these people who like know how to plan these things out. And I'm like,
Yes.
and never was it like, never in my experience with Respawn, it was like, you gotta work the weekend. It just so happened because I was like, I want to do all these things and I don't know how to plan anything because that's not where my skill set is. And so I'm working forever. And then it's like, you have these project managers, they're like, no, go home. They're like it's time for you. You can do it in this amount of time. Oh, I can do it in that amount of time. I can have a life as well. Like, so in my experience, it's been like a night and day experience. Like my work-life balance is like, whoa, there's like vacations and there's all of the, I feel like, do we ever work? No, I'm just kidding. We're working a lot, but like, it's so organized, at least in my experience. I'm pretty sure people come from all over the industry and this is all I know, but in my experience, I'm like, whoa, it's so crazy when you have a team of people who are focused on your work-life balance.
We love to hear that. And shout out to, I'm a project manager myself, so shout out to the project managers for coming in and getting it together. Yes, I am here for it. Evan or Ade, do you all want to weigh in?
Yeah, everything. Sorry, Evan.
Oh, go Ade, you go.
Everything Jordan and Alejandro said. The only thing I'll add to that is we're still tweaking that. We don't believe we're there yet. We're still kind of trying to improve on what that looks like. And even work balance itself, like when you're at work, this is why I mentioned the example of no meeting day, giving people room to kind of take themselves and go heads down when they want to go heads down. So we're work in progress, but plus one to everything both of them said. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing I would add to Ali's like a comment, it's a marathon, not a sprint, is like your career is a marathon, not a sprint. And so I know for me coming up like in the early 2000s, like crunch was a very like it's just an accepted thing, and like a lot of people got burnt out. And now as we've gotten older and into positions where we actually have a power and authority, we're like, you know what, that wasn't so good. And so we're you're starting to see a sea change in like how we view work in the game industry and put a priority, because now people are older, their lives are dynamic, maybe they have a spouse, maybe they have kids. And so, yeah, it's a huge priority because I want to stay here until I retire, and I still got a long ways. So don't want to burn out.
Exactly. I like that you applied that to like your career as well, not just in day to day, but like, yes, your career is also a marathon. And honestly, like there's really so many possibilities there. Like just, to keep that in mind, like y'all do not have to race to the finish line. Honestly, I don't think there is a finish line. I think you get to a point and then you shift and you want to do something else. So yes. So with that, I'm going to conclude our show. This has been so amazing. So amazing. I am so honored to be sitting down with you all again, chatting with the devs for a second time of Apex Legends. It is an absolute honor, not just for myself, but for our community. It's been great hearing about your journeys through the industry and your careers and everything, and the thought process within your roles and things that you work on in the game. It's been absolutely fantastic. And honestly, we're so grateful that you all could join us today. With that, is there anything else that you all want to share? Where can people find you? Or just anything else that you'd like to leave us on a note?
Thanks for watching us. I hope we inspired you today. Like, I don't know who's watching this, but I hope you consider the games industry as a career path, because we're always looking for great people. And hopefully this inspires you to keep working on your own personal projects as you spend the various nights and weekends chipping away.
Yes, thank you.
For me, I'd just like to give a weird shout out to a group called GATA, and especially in this environment, GATA is the Game Audio Diversity Alliance, and they're working really hard to garnish the resources to give a lot of people of color and women and LGBT, every underrepresented group, the ability for scholarships and ultimately jobs in the industry. And it's still, I think, quote, please correct me if I'm wrong, I think this was the last Gama Sutra or whatever the thing was, it was
Yeah.
like 2.6%, at least specifically African American, and
Mhm.
different across the board. That was one that popped up in my mind. So there's still just obviously a heavy lack of representation in many different demographics, and but there's people out there that are working, like after we get done, all these people that I work with at GATA, and they're doing a lot more work than I am. I'd like I said, I do want to inflate my own involvement, but they go home after working on amazing games, and then they spend their after hours trying to find ways to get people like us into this industry. And so that's out there, the resources are out there, but it's also people are thinking and constantly working towards getting us in here, which is just something to keep in mind.
Thank you. So GATA, right?
GADA, yeah.
GADA. Okay, y'all look up GATA. Ade and Ali, do y'all have anything you'd like to leave us with?
I can top Jordan and Evan. So all I want to say is thanks to everyone that joined, and a special thanks to you, Brandy, for this community and what you do for them. Thank you.
Thank you. All
right. Last but not least.
Last but not least.
No, I want to thank you, Brandy, for having us on your show today. Seriously, it's been a pleasure talking with you, and just hearing the stories, reading the chats are really fun. And yeah, keep playing Apex, keep having
Yes.
fun, and yeah, Alejandro Potter on pretty much any social media. So yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we are going to close out the show. Thank you all so much for coming through today and supporting. Thank y'all in the chat for coming, all of our viewers who have come through and supported us today. It's been very, very, very special for us to host this interview. This is our second interview with the developers of Apex, and we hope for many, many more. But this has been great. We really appreciated you all. Hang around, as we are going to raid someone, because we always want to share the love to folks in the community. But in the meantime, make sure you all are following us on all of our socials. Brown Girl Gamer Code on all socials. On Twitter, we're BGGC with the underscore. So make sure you all check that out. We are starting our new stream team. They'll be kicking off on Monday, so look out for the schedule for that. Otherwise, thank y'all so much, and continue to support Brown Girl Gamer Code. Continue to support Apex Legends. It's an amazing game with an amazing developers behind it. So yeah, with that, I will see you all next time, and stay tuned for the raid. Bye-bye.